I should have known something was wrong when I woke up at exactly 3:17 a.m. for the 7th night in a row. My phone said 3:17. Always 3:17. Not 3:16, not 3:18. And every time I woke, I could hear it, the soft whisper of paper sliding against paper, like someone counting money in the dark. The first night, I thought it was a dream. The second night, I told myself it was the wind. By the 7th night, I knew better. That night, I didn't close my eyes and try to sleep again. I got out of bed, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, and I walked to my office. My office is attached to my house in Port Harcourt. A small building I built with my own hands when the business started growing. 2 rooms and a bathroom. Simple. The door was closed, but I could see light coming from underneath, not electric light, but something else. Something that moved and flickered like candlelight, except I never used candles in that office. I stood outside that door for maybe 5 minutes. Just stood there, listening. The sound of paper. Rhythmic. Deliberate. And then I heard something else, a low sound, like breathing, but too deep. Too hollow. Like wind moving through an empty skull. My hand was shaking when I reached for the door handle. I told myself I would open it fast, turn on the light, and prove to myself that nothing was there. That I was just tired. Stressed. Working too hard. I opened the door. The office was full of them. Dark shapes. Tall and thin, like people stretched too long. 7 of them, maybe 8, I couldn't count because they moved strangely, flickering in and out like bad television reception. They stood around my desk, around my filing cabinets, bent over stacks of money I had never seen before. Naira notes piled higher than my computer monitor. They were counting. Their fingers, if you could call them fingers, moved through the bills with impossible speed, and every time they touched the money, I heard that whisper. Paper against paper. Count and stack. Count and stack. I tried to scream. I swear to God, I tried. But my throat closed up like someone had wrapped a hand around it. One of them turned its head toward me. It had no eyes. No mouth. Just smooth darkness where a face should be. But I knew it was looking at me. I could feel it seeing me, the same way you can feel someone staring at you in a crowded bus. Then, slowly, it raised one long finger and pointed at me. The others stopped counting. All of them turned. All of them pointed. I ran. I slammed the door and ran back to my bedroom, locked the door, and sat on the floor with my back against it until sunrise. My wife, Nkiru, asked me why I was sweating. I told her I had a nightmare. But when I finally went back to the office in the morning, the money was gone. Everything looked normal. Except for one thing. On my desk, arranged in a perfect circle, were 7 50 Naira notes. Old ones, dirty and torn. And in the center of the circle, written in red ink, or something that looked like red ink, were 3 numbers, 317. That was 3 months after I met the charm seller. 3 months after I followed his instructions. 3 months after everything in my life began to change. Let me go back. Let me tell you how this started, because if I don't tell someone the truth, I think I will go mad. My name is Emeka. Emeka Okonkwo. I am 32 years old, and before all this began, I was failing. My import business was dying. I had taken loans I couldn't pay back. My wife's family mocked me at every gathering. My own mother would call and ask when I was going to finally become a man and provide for my family properly. I had one employee, my cousin, Chidi, and even he was looking for other jobs. Every morning I woke up with a knot in my stomach. Every night I lay awake calculating debts. I had tried everything. I prayed. I fasted. I went to 3 different churches. Nothing worked. My competitors were moving ahead, men younger than me, less educated than me, and I was stuck, drowning, desperate. Then one Friday evening, Chidi told me about a man in ABA Market. There is someone who can help you, Chidi said. We were closing the office, which meant turning off the lights and locking the door on another day of no sales. My friend used him. Now my friend drives a Lexus and just opened a second shop. I should have said no. I should have walked away. But desperation makes you do things you would never do otherwise. What kind of help? I asked. Chitty looked around, even though we were alone. The kind that works, he said. But you cannot ask questions. And you cannot tell anyone. Not even your wife. 2 days later, I was in ABA Market, walking through the section where they sell herbs and roots and animal skins. The smell was thick, dried fish and incense and something else I couldn't name. Chitty had given me directions: past the woman who sells black soap, turn left at the man with the python, look for the blue tarp. I found him sitting on a low stool behind a table covered with bottles and pouches. He was old, maybe 70, maybe older, with white hair and eyes that seemed too young for his face. He wore a dirty white singlet and wrapper tied around his waist. When I approached, he smiled, showing 3 missing teeth. "You are the one Chitty sent," he said. Not a question. A statement. "Yes, sir," I said. "You want money." "I want my business to succeed." He laughed. It sounded like gravel scraping against metal. "Same thing. Sit down." I sat on the ground in front of him. He studied me for a long time, then reached under his table and pulled out a small cloth bag tied with red string. "You will do exactly what I tell you," he said. "You will not ask why. You will not change anything. You will not tell anyone. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "At midnight tonight, you will go to your office alone. You will open all the windows and doors. You will place this bag in the center of your biggest room. You will light 1 white candle. Then you will say, 'I welcome prosperity into my home.' 3 times. After that, you will leave. You will not look back. You will not close any door or window until sunrise. That's all." I asked. His eyes went cold. I said no questions. I swallowed. "Sorry, sir." He handed me the bag. It was heavier than it looked, and warm, like something alive had just been inside it. "You will pay me after your first success," he said. "I will know when it comes." I took the bag. I paid him nothing that day. I walked out of that market with my heart racing and my palms sweating, telling myself I could always throw the bag away. I didn't have to do anything. But that night, at midnight, I stood in my office with all the doors and windows open, lighting a white candle. I placed the bag in the center of the floor. I said the words 3 times, "I welcome prosperity into my home." Then I walked out, leaving everything open to the night, and I did not look back. The next morning, I had 3 missed calls from a Chinese company I had contacted 6 months earlier. They wanted to place an order. A big one. The kind that would save my business. That was the beginning. That was when the guest arrived. If you have enjoyed this video up till this moment, please subscribe to this channel to see more videos like this. Thank you. The Chinese company order came through within a week. 2 container loads of electronics. The profit margin was better than anything I had seen in 3 years. I paid off 2 of my biggest debts. I hired 3 new employees. Nkiru cried when I brought home money for the first time in months. "God has answered our prayers," she said, holding my hand across our small dining table. I nodded. I smiled. But inside, something felt wrong. The success had come too fast, too easy, like water flowing uphill. 3 days after I signed the Chinese contract, I got a phone call. It was from Chitty. "Emeka, did you hear about Obiora?" Obiora was my biggest competitor. He ran an import business twice the size of mine, and he had been trying to steal the Chinese company contract for months. "What about him?" "He's dead. Heart attack. They found him in his office this morning." My phone felt heavy in my hand. "What?" "Just collapsed. He was only 38. No history of heart problems. His wife is saying it's village people, but the doctors said it was natural." I ended the call and sat very still. I told myself it was coincidence. People die every day. Heart attacks happen. This had nothing to do with me. But that night, I woke up at 3:17 a.m., and I heard the counting for the first time. The second deal came a month later. A government contract, something I had been chasing for 2 years with no success. Suddenly, the official in charge called me personally. He said my proposal was the best. He said the contract was mine. I didn't even have to pay the usual bribe. I should have been happy. Instead, I felt sick. The official's name was Mr. Ease. He signed the papers on a Thursday. On Saturday, his car went off 3rd Mainland Bridge in Lagos. They said he was driving too fast. They said he lost control. They pulled his body from the water 3 days later. I went to his funeral. I stood in the back and watched his wife wailing, their children holding onto her wrapper, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. When I got back to my car, there was a handprint on the driver's side door. Red and wet, like someone had dipped their palm in palm oil and pressed it against the metal. I tried to wipe it off. It wouldn't come off. I used water, soap, even kerosene. The handprint stayed. But when I asked my security guard if he saw it, he looked at me strangely. See what, Oga? The handprint. There. On the door. He looked at where I was pointing. There is nothing there, sir. That was when I knew. Whatever I had invited into my life, whatever I had welcomed that midnight, it wasn't just prosperity. It was something else. Something that took payment in ways I didn't understand. The third death was a customs officer named Namdi. He had been blocking one of my shipments for weeks, asking for bribes I couldn't afford. Then suddenly, he called me and said the shipment was cleared. No payment needed. He sounded strange on the phone. Distant. Like he was reading from a script. Just take your goods, Mr. Okonkwo. No problem. 2 days later, his family found him hanging in his bedroom. Suicide, they said. No note. No explanation. He had 3 children. I stopped sleeping. Every night, 3:17 a.m., I would wake to that sound. The counting. Sometimes I would see shadows moving under my office door. Sometimes I would find money on my desk, always 750 naira notes, always arranged in a circle. I threw them away. They came back. Nkiru noticed something was wrong. You are not eating, she said one morning. You are losing weight. Are you sick? I'm fine. Just stressed. But the business is doing well now. Better than ever. Why are you stressed? I couldn't tell her. How could I explain? How could I tell my wife that every success we celebrated was bought with someone's life? That something was living in our prosperity, feeding on it, and I didn't know how to make it stop. I went back to ABA Market. I found the old man behind the same blue tarp, sitting on the same stool. I need you to reverse it, I said. Whatever you did, I need you to undo it. He looked at me with those 2 young eyes and smiled. You cannot reverse a welcome. You opened the door. You invited the guest. Now it lives in your house. But people are dying. Yes. That is the price. Did you think prosperity was free? I grabbed his table. You didn't tell me people would die. I told you not to ask questions. I told you to follow the instructions exactly. Did you close the doors before sunrise? I froze. What? The doors. The windows. Did you close them before sunrise like I instructed? My mouth went dry. You said not to close them until sunrise. No. I said you will not close them until sunrise. Meaning you should close them at sunrise. First light. You were supposed to close everything the moment the sun came up. Did you? I hadn't. I had left everything open. I had gone home after the ritual and slept. I didn't go back to the office until mid-morning. The doors and windows had been open for hours after sunrise. What does that mean? I whispered. The old man's smile disappeared. It means you didn't just welcome prosperity. You left the door open long enough for something else to come in. Something that walks behind prosperity like a shadow. Something that feeds. What is it? We call it the guest. It comes when you invite wealth without knowing the cost. It lives in your success. It counts what you owe. And it takes payment from those around you until the debt is settled. How do I settle it? He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, you can't. Not anymore. The guest doesn't leave until it decides the debt is paid. And it always takes more than you think you owe. I left that market feeling like I was drowning. My business was thriving. Money was flowing in from every direction. But every time I made a deal, every time I signed a contract, I waited for the phone call. For the news. For another death. They came regularly now. A supplier. A bank manager who approved my loan. A driver who worked for one of my clients. All of them connected to my success. All of them dying in strange, sudden ways. And every night, the shadows in my office grew darker, more solid. Sometimes I could see them even during the day, standing in corners, watching me work. The handprints appeared everywhere. On my car. On my office walls. On the bathroom mirror in my house. Always red. Always wet. Always invisible to everyone except me. Nkiru's family started visiting more often. They smiled at me now. They called me, our son. They asked for help with school fees and medical bills, and I gave it to them because I had money now. So much money. More than I ever dreamed. But at night, alone in my bed, I lay awake counting. Not money. Bodies. Counting the people who had died so I could succeed. Counting and wondering when the guest would stop taking strangers and start taking the people I loved. That answer came on a Sunday, during my mother's Thanksgiving service. My mother's Thanksgiving service was supposed to be a celebration. She had organized it to thank God for my success, for how her son had finally become somebody. She invited half the village. She rented canopies and hired caterers. She wore her best wrapper and coral beads. When I arrived with Nkiru, she held my hand and paraded me around like a trophy. This is my son, she told everyone. The one who has made me proud. I smiled. I shook hands. I accepted congratulations. But my eyes kept drifting to the corners of the compound, looking for shadows. Looking for the guest. The service was loud and joyful. The choir sang. The pastor preached about God's blessings. People danced. My younger brother Ikenna was the most excited. He had just gained admission to study medicine at the University of Lagos, and I had paid his first-year fees. He kept hugging me, thanking me, calling me his hero. When I become a doctor, I will take care of you the way you took care of me, he said. He was 20 years old. Bright. Full of life. My mother's favorite, though she would never admit it. The Thanksgiving prayer came at the end. Everyone stood. The pastor called my family to the front, me, Nkiru, my mother, Ikenna. We held hands in a circle while the congregation prayed for continued blessings and protection. That's when I felt it. A cold hand on my shoulder. I turned, but no one was there. The hand squeezed tighter. I could feel fingers, long and thin, pressing into my flesh through my shirt. The temperature dropped. My breath came out as fog even though we were standing under the hot afternoon sun. Then I saw it. Standing behind my brother. Tall and dark and flickering. The guest. Its eyeless face turned toward Ikenna, and it raised one finger, pointing at him the way it had pointed at me in my office. No, I whispered. The pastor was still praying. No one else saw it. No one else felt the cold. Please, I said, louder. Not him. The guest tilted its head. Then it touched Ikenna's shoulder. My brother gasped. His hand slipped out of mine. He staggered backward, clutching his chest. His eyes went wide. Ikenna. My mother's voice was sharp with fear. He tried to speak. His mouth opened but no words came out. Then he collapsed. The compound erupted in chaos. People screaming. Someone called for a doctor. My mother was on the ground, holding Ikenna's head in her lap, crying his name over and over. The pastor was praying frantically. Nkiru was pulling at my arm, asking me what was happening. I just stood there, watching the guest. It remained behind my brother's body, still pointing. Then, slowly, it turned and walked toward the gate. It didn't use the gate. It walked through the wall like smoke and disappeared. They rushed Ikenna to the hospital. The doctors worked on him for 3 hours. When they came out, they said it was a massive heart attack. Unexplained. Impossible for someone his age with no medical history. They said sometimes these things just happen. But I knew. The funeral was the following week. My mother didn't speak to me. Not because she blamed me, she didn't know, but because she couldn't speak to anyone. Grief had swallowed her voice. She sat in her chair and stared at nothing. The night after we buried Ikenna, I went back to ABA Market. I found the old man. This time I didn't ask. I grabbed him by his singlet and pulled him close. You have to stop this. It took my brother. My brother. He didn't fight me. He just looked at me with those terrible young eyes and said, "It will take more. It will take until the debt is paid." What debt? I didn't ask for anyone to die. You asked for prosperity without asking the cost. Now the cost is being collected. The guest is counting, Emika. It counts what you've gained. It counts what you owe. And it will keep taking until the numbers balance. How do I stop it? You can't stop it. But you can choose. Choose what? He pulled away from my grip and sat back down on his stool. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Almost sad. The guest always takes from those around the one who invited it. It feeds on the connections. But there is one way to end it quickly. You give yourself. You become the payment. Then the debt is settled and the guest leaves. You mean kill myself? I mean offer yourself. Walk into your office at 3:17 a.m. Stand in the center where you placed the bag. Say, "I am the payment." The guest will come. It will take you. And everyone else will be free. I stared at him. And if I don't? Then it keeps feeding. Your mother. Your wife. Your cousins. Your employees. Everyone connected to your prosperity. One by one, until there is no one left. Until you are alone with your money and your grief. I went home that night and sat in my bedroom. Nkiru was asleep beside me. I watched her breathe. I thought about Ikenna. About Obiora and Mr. Ease and Namdi and all the others. I thought about the shadows counting money in my office. About the handprints only I could see. At 3:15 a.m. I got out of bed. I walked to my office. I stood outside the door, listening to the counting inside. My hand shook as I reached for the handle. I thought about my mother's face at the funeral. I thought about Nkiru waking up tomorrow and finding me gone. I thought about whether I was brave enough to open that door and speak those words. But then I thought about who the guest would take next if I didn't. I opened the door. The shadows stopped counting. They all turned toward me. 7 of them. Maybe 8. All pointing. I walked to the center of the room. I stood where I had placed the bag that midnight months ago. I opened my mouth to speak the words. But I couldn't. I stood there, shaking, tears running down my face, and I couldn't say it. I wanted to live. God help me, even after everything, I wanted to live. I walked out. I closed the door. I went back to bed. The next morning, my cousin Chitty didn't come to work. They found him drowned in a river. No one knows how he got there. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, 3 more people connected to my business have died. The guest is still counting. I still wake at 3:17 every night. The handprints appear everywhere. My mother has stopped eating. Nkiru asks me every day what is wrong with me, why I look so haunted, but I cannot tell her. The money keeps coming. The business keeps growing. And the guest keeps taking its payment. I know what I should do. I know how to end it. But I am a coward. I choose my life over theirs, every night. And every morning, I wake up and wait for the phone call that will tell me who died this time. This is my confession. This is my warning.